Everybody put 3 fingers in the air. The sky's falling, the wind is calling, stand for something or die in the morning. Section 80, high power.
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that our own mind has to be changed. We have to change our mind about ourselves. In what way? Well, so he teaches us the importance of moral reformation, a knowledge of self. And for instance, the average so-called Negro, he doesn't think that he can go into business and provide jobs for himself. And because of this, he thinks that he can only get a job from the white man, or he can only get clothes from the white man, or he can only get food from the white man. And we who follow the Honorable Elijah Muhammad are taught that the same thing that the white man has done for himself and his kind, if our people could be if we could be cured of our slave mentality that was indoctrinated into us during slavery, we would realize that just as the white man can do these things for himself and his kind, we can get together in unity and harmony and do the same thing for ourselves and our kind.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to the Woke Podcast. I am your host, Brandon Jones. In today's episode, we take a look at the mental health struggles that Black males face on a consistent basis. As we know, being a Black person in an anti-Black world is stressful, traumatic, and downright depressing. Today, on Twitter, You Good Man hashtag was trending. You Good Man allowed thousands of Black males and females to share their experiences of mental health. It was an empowering exchange. Today's episode, I share some of my viewpoints on being a Black male and dealing with mental health, as well as working with Black males who deal with mental health. So be sure to subscribe if this is your first time listening to the Woke Podcast. Welcome. If it's not, welcome back. And be sure to share it with someone that you care about. Please be aware that I recorded this while I was in the car, so there may be some background noise. I tried to restore the audio as best as I could. But nonetheless, it's some constructive information. So be sure to tune in. And without further ado, here we go. You Good Man. Hashtag You Good Man. Something powerful happened on Twitter today. Black men decided that we were going to share our experiences and our struggles with our mental health, and we decided to have an open and honest conversation about our mental health, which I think is beautiful. I think it's empowering to talk about your mental health. I think it's great for people to share what's going on in their heads with their emotions and their thoughts and their feelings. And I apologize for any of the background noise. I am in the car. I'm bending these corners, trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone and get this podcast out while these thoughts are fresh on my mind. Because You Good Man it's a great hashtag. And one of the things, being a psychotherapist, one of the things that I know is that Black males, we really struggle to manage our emotions. I think that as Black men, as Black males, I'm going to use the term Black males because I think it extends from young males to adults and even to elders. We really struggle with managing our emotions. We've been conditioned not to be able to manage our emotions because, when someone can't manage their emotions, they're easily to manipulate and to control. And I think that this was deliberately done to us as a people, and it's manifested into what we have now. One of the things that I've been doing now since about 2010 is I do a lot of men's groups. I do a lot of psychotherapy men's groups, and I have developed a curriculum that focuses primarily on younger Black men and our mental emotional health, and I use social and emotional intelligence in that curriculum. And some of the things that we talk about in my groups, it's based on a 12 modules, right? And some of the things that we talk about is manhood, masculinity. We talk about healthy relationships. We talk about trauma. We talk about grief. We talk about forgiveness. We talk about self-defeating behaviors. We talk about creating a personal code of ethics, ways for you to do things that are constructive on a daily basis. These are topics that I will share on the podcast moving forward as well. But this hashtag really had me thinking, man, Twitter is a great platform for us to really use our voices for multiple different things. And it was beautiful to see Black men just sharing, 140 characters of what they experience. It was good for us to connect that way, and I like that. And I hope that, you know, You Good Man continues on, and I hope that this podcast can help push You Good Man. I don't know who created the hashtag. I tried to follow it, but I got lost in tweets before I could find who started the hashtag. But if whoever started it, hit me up. If you hear this, or if you know the person that started it, hit me up. I'd love to have a conversation with you on the podcast about why you started it, some things that you may or may not have been dealing with in your own mental health. I know I have dealt with stuff in my life, and I think it's good for us to start having these conversations publicly, so that other black men who deal with these issues understand that they're not alone. You know, as men, we are socialized to not deal with our emotions, and I think this is men across ethnicities and races. We are conditioned not to. We are conditioned / socialized to not deal with our emotions. Everybody's seen a young boy that's been told not to cry when he's 4 years old. And, you know, he's frustrated, told not to cry. You know, toughen up, man up. We hear these things. Stop being a pussy. Stop being soft. Stop being a little bitch. We hear all these terms. Those are all quotes that I heard before I turned 10 years old. And it's not about being sweet. It's not about being soft. It's not about being lame. It's not about any of that. It's about, you have emotions. You're a human being. You have emotions. You go through stuff. And when you go through stuff, you should do what any other human would do, and that's process that emotions, no matter what it's through. You know, black men, we suffer in silence from when we're boys until when we die. We suffer in silence a lot of the time. You know, one of the analogies I use in my groups is when I'm talking to especially younger dudes, you know, 18 to 24, and I talk about temper tantrums and how we suck at managing our emotions. I usually say that we are, we're very. It's apparently it's not masculine for you to have emotions and express them, right? And one of the analogies that I use is when a 4-year-old boy throws a temper tantrum, you know, sometimes it's cute, right? It's like, oh, look, a little man, he mad. Oh, you mad, little man? You all right, bro? You gonna be okay? Look at he crying like a little punk. Toughen up, man. You be tough, right? It's cute. But what ends up happening is when black males, when boys, when we're not allowed to express ourselves young, we keep that stuff bottled up. So we actually emotionally kind of have our development arrested. So our emotions stop at a certain level because we have to harden up on the inside. So what happens when an 18, 19, or 20-year-old throws the same emotional temper tantrum as a 4-year-old? People get hurt. People can die. They might hurt themselves. Like, there's a lot of pent-up anger and aggression because we've never been socialized. It's never been comfortable. It's never been something open where we can express our emotions in a constructive manner. It's very interesting. And I use the term constructive manner for you guys to understand, because there are areas where black males are encouraged to express their emotions. Usually it's in sports, right? So you think about, like, I played football. All Pee-wee, middle school, high school. Could have played college, but decided I was better than what I was getting offered and said, F it, right? But football, you know, one of my biggest hang-ups with football, and I was told, you are never going to be a defensive end in college because you're not mean enough. And it used to blow my mind because I was talented enough. I was able to do what I needed to do on the field, but they're like, you are not mean enough. And they used to encourage me to be mean all the time. And you know, I'm a cool dude. Like, I'm pretty mellow. I don't get too emotional about stuff. You know, I've learned to manage my emotions very well, but I do get angry a lot. Like, I do get pissed, but I don't show it like you typically will see someone who's angry with an outlash. I don't usually do that. But they used to tell me I didn't get angry enough, and it used to make me so mad. I used to be so frustrated. Like, man, F this shit, man. Like, look, I am angry. Like, I have a lot of things to be angry about. You know, I don't have a relationship with my dad. I don't live with my parents. You know, my grandma's busy. She's working hard. I don't know what's about to happen in my life. I was pissed off all the time. And I used to channel my anger on the football field, but from my coach's standpoint, they didn't see that. They said I was not angry enough. So they were encouraging me to be just pissed off, angry, and just unleash. So there was a point in time in my career as a football player that I used to intentionally try to hurt people. I used to literally try to put people out of the game. Like, my goal was to make sure that an ambulance would show up and take out somebody take somebody off the field that I took out. And that's crazy thinking. Now that I'm an adult and I'm mature and I can think back, like, man, I used to intentionally try to hurt people. Like, that's not cool. But I was encouraged to do that. And, unfortunately, black men, we are only encouraged to have emotions or to express our emotions when it benefits other people. And I think that that's very dangerous. That's very dangerous, right? We don't see the many emotions that go through black men. It's not promoted. It's not very promoted for men to go through any emotions anyway. But usually the only promotion we get is with aggression. And that's usually to someone else's benefit, like a sports team. And I think that that's dangerous. That's dangerous because we are humans, man. We do have emotions. We do. One of the things that I found in my studies and my research is that black men we function on 4 core emotions. 4 core emotions. Those emotions are anger, fear, guilt, and shame. And then a kind of a 5th emotion, and I don't always talk about it, but this emotion that I connect to what I call the pursuit of happiness, which is connected to hope. So we really function on 4 or 5 emotions, but I usually talk about the 4: anger, guilt, shame, and fear. Right? So, like I said before about the football example, we're always encouraged to be angry. Anger is good if it's benefiting someone else, right? But we know that a lot of our pent-up frustrations, a lot of the messed up stuff, watch my language, a lot of the messed up stuff that we've gone through as children, like we don't have outlets to process that, so we keep a lot of that bundled up. So we do have a lot of aggressive and angry men. Absolutely. And we have every right to be angry and aggressive. It's very interesting that black females get this angry black female kind of trope or archetype that's given out. But black men have the same thing. And this is because we live in a system with racism, white supremacy, and we live in a system where, we're always demonized and criminalized for just being who we are. And if we have a disagreement with something, we got to be considered to be dangerous, angry, criminals, thugs, etc., etc., etc. But we have very valid reasons to be angry. The next emotion is shame. Black males, we operate in shame a lot. And one of the things that's messed up about this is it's very hidden, right? But our whole existence of being a black male is based off shame. Think about your average 15, 16-year-old black male, right? They all have similar hairstyles. We all wear similar clothes. We got to be a certain type of way. We can't have any emotions or any feelings for a female. We all gotta be considered to be players or not having any attachments to anybody. We all gotta be tough. We all gotta have all these things to fit this little black male box. We all gotta like the same rappers. We can't like any other type of music. We can't be soft, can't be sweet out here. You gotta be able to fight. You gotta have the best stroke game. You gotta be having sex with multiple different people. Like, that's the archetype. And the reason why we have to have all these expectations as black males is due to shame. Because if you don't fit that archetype and people find out, then you're shamed. Now you ain't a real nigga. Now you ain't a real man. Something wrong with you. You weird. And that's one of the messed up things about what we have in our community is because you got to fit that archetype. And that's not an easy archetype to have because that shit is stressful. Trying to be like that is some stressful stuff. Shame. Black males operate in so much shame, it's ridiculous. It's hard to be yourself. It's hard to be an individual and have creative thought when you're a black male because you get shamed to death. Don't come to school with no damn shoes from Walmart because you're going to get clowned. You better get them J's or you're going to get clowned. Don't try to do nothing different or rock some Pumas. You're going to get clowned. Don't come up in here with nothing that we don't identify and that we as a collective has said, this is the cool thing, this is what's in, this is what's up, this is how you finesse this outfit. If you come in and you ain't finessing, then you're a problem. That is shame-based culture. And as black males, we operate in that. Like no tomorrow, man. I mean, it's funny because a couple years ago, Chris Brown came out with the song, These Hoes Ain't Loyal, right? And there's a lot of talk about chicks being basic. Like, and everybody's basic. These bitches is basic. I heard that a lot from a lot of the youth I work with. These women, these chicks is basic, all this stuff. But honestly, black males is more basic than anything. We all dress the same. We have the same damn haircuts. We wear this. We do the same stuff. We use pretty much the same language depending on which region you're in. Like, we are more basic than the females are, and that's what blows my mind. But once again, that's shame-based masculinity. Right? That's shame-based masculinity. So we have to be like that. Otherwise, something's wrong with us. So shame's the other one. Fear and guilt kind of goes in with the shame, right? So fear and guilt. For fear, don't be outside that box. Don't be a different type of black male. Because if you are, it's a problem. That's fear. And one of the things that we got to keep in mind about black men, especially black men that have grown up in urban environments, which most of us have, is that vulnerability is a huge part of our identity. And being vulnerable in the hood can wind up having you be dead or hurt really bad. So we operate in a lot of fear that we don't want to be caught vulnerable, whether that's emotionally or physically. We do not want to be vulnerable at all. Don't get I remember a lot of old dudes used to say, don't get your nose open, which translates into don't get too emotionally attached to a female. Because if you get your nose open, you're going to get hurt. And that ain't how a real player do. That ain't how a boss do. You never get your nose open, right? Fear to be emotionally vulnerable to another person. And then we end up confused and lonely and frustrated later on in life because we've been playing this stupid game of, I can't be with one person, or I can't get too close to one person. And then we send out stupid memes and we send out, tweets about how silly we are as far as how we function male-female relationships and male-male relationships too. And then we end up lonely later on in life with a bunch of kids and a bunch of baby mamas and a bunch of frustration and confusion because we've been playing this stupid game that has been given to us, marketed and promoted to us to just be all over the place with our masculinity and our sexuality. Like, that's very dangerous thinking. And I'm not saying that every black male needs to go get a black female and get married, but we need to be a little bit more responsible and not fall for these traps that people have put out here for us, because as we see, it continues to hurt us. It continues to hurt us as a community, not just black males, because black females get hurt in a situation too. Right? Very toxic situation. So the fear that the shame and the guilt that goes in right there, man. I mean, we have a lot of shame and a lot of guilt, and a lot of fear. And then the last one is what I consider the pursuit of happiness, also known, and the closest emotion that I could think of to attach this to was hope. Hope. Every black male that I've worked with, doesn't matter how high their level of mental health has been. I've worked with black males that have been schizophrenic. I've worked with black men that have had severe depression. I've worked with black men who just had some family issues they needed to work out. Every black male that I've worked with, they had a level of hope. They wanted to be successful, or they wanted to leave the state of Minnesota, or they wanted to, relocate to somewhere where they can have a better life, or they wanted to help their family members or their community. Everybody has some type of hope. And that's one of the key things, and that's one of the things that keeps me going, is that the black males that I work with, the black males that I come in contact with, my job is to help them push through their emotional situation and actually take some action steps towards whatever they're hoping for. Because one thing that we got to be careful of in the black community is hope has become a drug. And if we don't understand that we can't just have hope and believe that things are going to get okay, that we have to take some action steps and do something with that hope, we're going to get stuck if we don't understand that. So, that hope is great, but we can't get hung up on it. We got to take some steps. We got to make some action, some strategies, some tactics to make sure that the things that we desire actually manifest and happen. So those are the 4/5. I should just say the 5 kind of emotions that black males function under: anger, fear, guilt, shame, and hope. That's what most of the black males I come in contact with. They're functioning on one of those emotions, if not all of them. I didn't say nothing about curiosity, intrigue, pure desire, any other types of emotions. I mean, you can Google a list and they give you 300 emotions. But usually those are our core. Those are our core emotions, and I think that that's not good for us. And I'm very grateful for this hashtag. I'm very grateful for the brave men and women who decided to share and talk about their experiences, because we're in this together. And if we can't deal with our emotions as a collective, if we can't be honest about it, we ain't gonna get nowhere. We're at a point in time in history where I think we're regressing. As much progress, quote unquote progress, we've made, we're regressing socially, and we need each other as much as possible. And getting our mental health right is a huge piece of that puzzle for us to move forward as a collective. Now, another thing I wanted to touch on is this whole concept of stigma in the black community when it comes to mental health. And I do believe that to a certain extent we do have stigma in the black community when it comes to mental health. However, I think a bigger problem is that we don't have enough information about mental health. And not only do we don't have enough information, we don't have enough providers too. That's another thing. We don't have enough providers that I'm even willing to say, yeah, definitely I will make a referral to you, to this person. We don't have enough providers, and we don't have enough information. Mental health can be confusing. It's a lot of big words. Automatically we associate it with medications, which doesn't always have to be the case. I honestly think we're over medicated a lot of the times. But this whole concept of stigma, and hell yeah, there's stigma. Absolutely. It's not easy to tell anybody about your personal problems, period. Whether it's a mental health professional, a family member, a spouse, it doesn't matter. It's hard to communicate your problems and issues with somebody. It's very hard to do that, especially a stranger, especially somebody that you don't know. So one of the key things that I try to do with the clients that I work with is build a relationship with them, and I also try to be as transparent as possible. That doesn't always happen for a lot of counselors, because actually we are trained as therapists, as mental health professionals, we're trained not to disclose too much information about ourselves, which I believe does not work well for black folks. Like, we need to know who's who. It reminds me of Kendrick Lamar's album when he was like, I want to know where your mama stay, where your grandma stay. Like, that's how we are as a people. Like, we need to know who we dealing with when we deal with them. So, when I work with folks, I let them know who I am. I don't hold back too much information. I don't get all into details with stuff because that's not necessary for their treatment. But I do let them in. If I'm going to get all up in your business, it's only right that you get all up in mine a little bit too. It's only right. And that doesn't always happen. That doesn't always happen when it comes to providers, and that feeds the stigma. Because why would I come to somebody, tell all my business about myself to them, and I don't know nothing about this person? So we're very suspicious, and that suspicion is definitely valid. That suspicion is definitely valid, and we should be suspicious because like I said, we've been hurt by the medical system several times, and it continues to happen. We've been dehumanized, traumatized, and demonized by medical system, mental health, all that. We have been. That's been our unfortunate experience, especially in the United States of America. This is what has happened. So one of the things, like I said, is we don't have enough information about mental health. We don't know who to go to. We don't know if we should go to a Christian counselor, a social worker, a licensed clinical social worker, a marriage and family therapist. Like, we just don't know enough about that. We don't have enough providers. We don't trust the system. We don't trust medications. And we have very good reasons not to trust any of that stuff. We do. However, that doesn't mean that we should not get the help that we need. Which leads me to my next point, is that we have found other methods to deal with our mental health issues. Now, I don't think that these methods have always been that helpful. One of the biggest ones have been church. Yes, we use our religion and our spirituality to get through a lot of our stuff. And to a certain extent it works, but I think that it's not enough. Like, we deal with oppression, racism, being subjugated, toxic stress, trauma on a 24/7, 365-day basis. And sometimes that trauma seeps into other areas, including religion and church. And that's not helpful. Other ways that we deal with our emotional pain, deal with our mental health, is through other vices that are non-constructive. So drinking alcohol, smoking weed, doing other types of drugs, violence, absolutely. Violence, which I split into two categories, right? When I talk about violence, I talk about hard violence and I talk about soft violence. Hard violence is what you expect. You know, people having weapons, people fighting, people getting jumped. You know, we see a lot of this, especially with our youth. Just type in fight videos on YouTube. You're going to see a lot of black kids fighting, dealing with their pain, their toxic stress, and their trauma, letting it out on each other. You know, and then we have soft violence. We see a lot of this too. This is gossiping, flaming, roasting. I don't know what term you use. The old term used to be playing the dozens, right? Playing the dozens, which started on the plantation, but that's a whole nother podcast. You know, talking about each other. We see a lot of this in our media. This is why reality TV shows featuring black people are so damn popular, because we love that soft violence. Bitch, shut your ass up. Da-da-da-da-da. All that is soft violence. And as we see on damn near every reunion show, it turns into hard violence. Like, the soft violence builds up for the whole season. They get to the end and then they want to fight when they looking all good on stage and stuff. It's so ridiculous. But we love that stuff, man. It's become our entertainment. It's become our joy. Like, people can't wait till some of these shows come back on. Like, they just shut down their whole life to watch somebody, you know, unleash all this negativity on each other. But that's how we deal with our pain, by looking at other people's pain. Like, look at this fool. Look at so-and-so. Why she do that? Why he do that? He ain't no good. Like, that's how we deal with our stress and our pain, by looking at other people's stress and pain. That ain't good. Some other areas that we utilize: food, whether we eating too much or not eating enough. Food. Sleep. I know some people, man, that's all they do is sleep. They ain't got nothing else to do but sleep. Some of us don't sleep at all. So we either sleep way too much or way too little, on two different extremes. And then the last thing, which I usually get in trouble for talking about, but religion. We hang ourselves up on religion to deal with our pain and our stress and our trauma. And I think that that's not always helpful, because a lot of times the places and the people that we deal with on the religious/spirituality base, they got just as much trauma as we do. And then we just end up feeding this system, this loop of trauma, pain, and stress. And then things just get worse. There's a lot of issues going on in our churches. A lot of them. That's why a lot of young folks ain't even trying to mess with no churches, because they recognize game. But we got to do some serious analyzing of our mental health, our emotional health. We do. And we got to be honest about this. So I'm very appreciative of you good man hashtag. Very appreciative of this. And I hope that we continue to have these discussions. And I want to share an experience that I had with a black male when I first started out doing therapy. I was interning at this place, and for new listeners that haven't, heard my story, I live in Minnesota. Yes, there are black people here. And I was interning at a black mental health agency, which is great. We don't have too many of those at all, just in the nation, but especially in Minnesota. So I was interning at this place, and I got a call from a mom, and she was sharing that she was trying to get some help for her son. Son was 19. He had just went away to college, but she had to go back down and get him. And all she kept saying is, he's acting crazy. He's acting crazy. So I'm trying to figure out, what does acting crazy mean? And she was like, can you just help me? I'll bring him in. So it was close to the end of my shift. But, I heard the desire in his mom's mind. I'm trying to be a therapist. I'm going through my internship. I'm like, sure, bring him in. Let's see what we can do. So she was like, okay, I'll get him there as soon as I can. So, I finish off my last client. They get there probably in about 40 minutes or so, and they show up, and this young man, he's having an active schizophrenic episode. Definitely, active schizophrenic episode, which is not uncommon for people who develop schizophrenia. It usually happens around college age. I don't know why that is, but that's what the research says. So he had a full-blown episode, and he was in Texas for school. He had left Minnesota to go down to Texas for school. He was only down there for about a half of a semester, and they had to bring him back because he just had crazy episodes. And what we ended up finding out was he was down there popping pills. He was on Molly and some other stuff, and I don't know if that set off something for him. I don't know if it led to something, but whatever, he had a chemical imbalance, and that schizophrenia shot up real quick, and boom, he was in the office. So, so I get him in, and in Minnesota we have this thing called the COPE line. So when people are having, mental health episodes that are serious and pristine mental illness, so people who have personality disorders, schizophrenia, things like that, we have a COPE line, and they'll send out a team of mental health crisis professionals to come and work with the person and hopefully either settle them down as much as they can, or they can usher the person in to be committed into a psychiatric unit. So, I know this. I call the COPE line right away because I'm an intern. I know that I don't have the skills and capability 100% to deal with this. However, I used to work in a psych ward myself, so I had some skills, but I needed a more professional team in this situation. So I called the COPE line. They're like, all right, well, we can't come until until he gets there because of their policy or whatnot. So I wait, call him back when he gets there. He got there, we were good. So COPE people are there, and I'm talking to him. I'm just trying to keep him engaged because, people with schizophrenia, sometimes they can get violent. Sometimes their behaviors can get a little out of control. So with this gentleman, I was working with him. COPE line came, and they worked with him, and, he was in and out of the office. We tried to keep him calm down. We didn't want to put hands on him to restrain him or anything, but it got out of control to the point where we had to make a transfer from our office location to the local emergency room so he can be committed into the psych ward. So the COPE folks from the COPE line, they said, well, we can't transmit him because we don't have our unit to do this. By this time, it's like 7:30, 7:45 at night. I was supposed to leave at like 5:30. It was late, and they couldn't do nothing. So they said the only way we can transport him is to have a police escort. Now, mind you, this is a black male. He's 19 years old, and he can get somewhat aggressive. And this is before Trayvon Martin and all the current hype that we have of police brutality, even though police brutality has been going on since police have been started, and police murder. So I'm already like, shit, this is not a good idea. Like, I told them, I was like, I have some concerns about calling the police to come up in here. I know how these police get down up in Minnesota. I do not think this is a good idea. But they're like, this is the only thing we could do. So, me being the professional and the mental health professional, I had to okay this. Now, I did not feel comfortable with this, but under the circumstances, I had to do what I had to do. So the police show up quickly, of course, 15 minutes. They don't play up here in Minnesota. They get here. They come, and they don't waste no time. I mean, this is some of the most unethical stuff I've ever seen in my life, man. They come in. They take like maybe 2 or 3 minutes to talk to the COPE people. They come straight into the room where me and dude are sitting in. I can see them out the door. As they're talking to the people, they come right in, they come straight to him, and the dude's like, man, you guys are not gonna, the young man's like, you guys are not gonna take me, and automatically they just start cussing at him, they rough him up, and then out of nowhere, and I'm not kidding you, there's both of these cops are white, and there was a bald white dude, and I ain't trying to make no accusations that he might be a part of KKK, but I would not be surprised, pulls out these pink handcuffs, and puts him on him and grips him really tight. Like, they had to, like, tussle him down puts them on them really tight, and the young dude's just screaming like, man, these cuffs are way too tight, and the dude's just like cussing at him. It was horrific, and I just felt so guilty and so bad that they had to get to this. And I don't know what happened to that young man after he left that office. I had no follow-up with the mom. I had no follow-up with him. I do know that the hospital called to get records, but since he wasn't a patient of ours or a client of ours, we didn't really have anything for them. And after that, due to HIPAA violations, we can't really communicate because there's no record, there's no release of information or anything. So I don't know what happened to that young man, but I hope he's okay. But that will be a memory that's forever scarred in my mind, that as a mental health professional, I was put in an awkward position and potentially caused harm to another black person. And that's really fucked up, honestly. I mean, I'm just gonna keep it straight explicit. Like, that's pretty fucked up. I feel really, really bad about that, even to this day. And this happened about 4 years ago. So, it's tough, man. I mean, when black folks have mental health issues, we're treated no differently than if we didn't. By police or by anybody. I've seen it where people in schools, I work in a school-based setting, where they're treated really bad and they got severe depression. We got some serious issues in our community that all our mental health issues are very valid, and professionals, police, whoever, they don't necessarily take that under account. And this is why it's very important to have, folks like myself and other black folks, and then some black and some non-black folks, but people who actually give a damn and can understand what we go through in these professions. So if you're somebody who got a degree in sociology or got a degree in social work or got a degree in psychology and you're thinking, damn, I need to do something as a profession, take up therapy, man. We need more therapists. There's not enough of us. I always say that black males, as a black male therapist, I'm a damn unicorn, because it's hard to find us. And I know it's hard to find us because when I was thinking about leaving the state of Minnesota and moving to I was thinking about moving down to Texas, Houston, and people was like, man, we need more black therapists down here. And I'm like, damn, all the black people in Houston, Texas, and y'all don't got enough black male therapists. So I knew it was a problem. So if you're somebody who cares about your people, or you want to help, and you got one of them degrees, or you're a young person and you're thinking about going to school, think about therapy. And it's a journey to get licensed. It's a journey to get to this point. And I do believe that there are other ways to provide therapeutic support to people, but we need more mental health professionals as well, because, it's hard work. It's not easy. You have to, listen to a lot of people's stuff. You have to help them through a lot of painful and, hurtful things that they've been through, and it's hard for you to listen to it because it reminds you of stuff that you've been through. And then you have what they call countertransference, was when you identify a little bit too much with a client. But we need people who are trained to do this. And I'm gonna do another podcast later on about how mental health, the whole mental health system, was never created for most people. It's really created for white elites, but it definitely was not created for black folks. And actually, we were tested on a lot for mental health reasons. Like there's a lot of horrific history when it comes to psychotherapy and psychiatry when it comes to black people. I mean, just horrific things. It's not easy being a black person and even putting our trust in any systems, let alone a medical system, a la mental health, because of the history of us being abused by medical systems and being experimented on by mental health professionals, psychologists, and psychiatrists. Even though they've stole a lot of, our cultural shit to treat mental health, which is crazy. Maslow, he stole from us Freud. He wrote a whole book about how he stole stuff from Africa. So, I mean, there's a lot of deep stuff that people don't even know about when it comes to psychology, but we are in someone else's societal paradigm. We're operating in there, and unfortunately, we got to do what we got to do to maintain and move forward in it, even though it was never created for us or never built for us in the first place. One of my biggest things when I got into doing therapy, I started learning about mental health, is analyzing my own life. And I've been through a lot of trauma. I've been through a lot of stress. And honestly, I think I was depressed from about the time I was 12 years old to probably when I was about 20. I honestly believe I was depressed. Never treated at that time. one of my biggest things before becoming a therapist and going to grad school is I told myself that I'm going to go through therapy myself before I do this, because if I want to help somebody, I need to get some help myself. And I did 10 sessions. This is in the middle of grad school. I did not have a black mental health provider. I had this old white Greek dude from Greece, and it was actually pretty helpful. Now, I flirted with the idea of going back. I'm just not, I don't want to say I'm not in a bad place for me to go back to therapy, but I just haven't done it. But I do want to go back. I did do some premarital counseling with my wife as well before we got married. That was somewhat helpful, but it wasn't our thing. It was a little bit too religious for what we like to do. But we've also talked about potentially doing some marital counseling as we move forward, just to make sure that we're good. I mean, it doesn't always have to be when something really bad happens. Sometimes you just want to, fine tune things, like getting a oil change in your car. Like, you just want to make sure your shit's gonna keep running. So that's something that we've thought about. But I think that it's very important for everybody to have some mental health. I think black people, we should get free mental health, period. Like, the stuff that we've been through, we should have free mental health. But for me, it's been a long journey. Like, I've done a lot of self-work, whether it was self-help books, watching videos on YouTube has been helpful, asking myself questions. Also, another thing that I think that we don't do enough of is talking to the people that we've been through the trauma with. Like, I've had some pretty good conversations with my mom and my brothers, and just, asking questions and furthering my understanding on some of the messed up stuff that we've been through. Like, that was healing, man. Like, just to be able to tell my mom, like, how I felt about stuff, that was healing. That felt good. I felt better. I got all that pent-up frustration and confusion off my chest because I was able to communicate stuff. When my mom learned stuff she didn't even know, I learned something. One of the biggest things that has happened to me in the past, I would say 4 years, 5 years or so, is one day my brother was having an issue with his baby's mom, and he called me to come help him so he didn't flip out and do nothing reckless. So I go help, go see what's going on, break them up, get them out of there. And we go back to the house, and I'm talking to him on the porch. And I'm just filling him out, man, just trying to get him to calm down and let him understand, like, dude, this is what comes with being a parent. This is what comes when you have a baby mama. Like, you got stuff you need to work out, bro. So we're just talking. I'm going into therapy mode at this time because I'm trying to really help him connect with his emotions. And he said something really striking to me. And he got, I don't know why he got frustrated, I don't remember, but he had got mad, he had yelled at me, he said, man, you left us, Brandon, you left us. And I'm like, what is he talking about? I left them. And then so I asked him, like, man, what the F are you talking about? I left you. He was like, dude, when you left home to go live at grandma's house, you left us here with all this, effed up stuff, is what he said. And I was just like, damn, I never thought of it like that. Because I left home twice. All throughout middle school, like when I was like 12, 13 years old, I went and lived with my grandma. And then I tried to go back home early on in high school. It wasn't really working out, so I left again. And that's what he was referencing when I left again. He's like, you left us here with all this shit we had to deal with. And you were the dude that was making sure that we were good. And I never thought of it like that. I never thought that I left my brothers. I was just trying to get out of a situation that was too stressful and too traumatic for me. But for my brothers, they seen it as, dang, our protection is gone. And that hurt me. Like, I was messed up. I just started bawling right there on this porch because I never thought of it like that. I never connected how my actions affected my brothers that much. I always thought that me getting out of there and doing better for myself, quote unquote, going to college, having jobs and stuff was something that they would aspire to do and they would just follow my footsteps. I never understood that they physically needed me there to protect them, and that was huge. And that made me think of all the other black dudes that I know, black folks, period, that I know that, being a black male, you got to grow up. Being a black person, period, you got to grow up fast. A lot of times as children, we are forced to pick up mature and adult responsibilities before we're ready. Way before we're ready. And we end up losing out on a lot of our childhood. And it made me think like, damn, when I left home, I was trying to save my childhood, my teenage, my adolescent years so I could better myself. But at the same time, I hurt my brothers. And that messed up our relationship when I did that. And it made me think like, damn, how many other black youth, young people have to go through stuff like that? Where you're forced to make a decision to better yourself, put yourself in a better position, but at the same time, you got people that are dependent on you to stay stuck in that dysfunction. That is a messed up thought to have, to stay in that dysfunction, to protect them. And that's something that still wanes on me today, because I'm like, man, if I would have stayed there, I'm pretty sure I would not be the person I am today. I'm very confident in that. I probably would have a couple baby mamas myself. I'd probably be out here slanging. Definitely would not be on a podcast. I would not be this dude that I am today. I'd probably be high all the time. Man, I probably would not be where I am today if I didn't get out of there. But I had to sacrifice and I had to compromise that family dynamic to put myself in a better position. And I don't think that that's right. My story, that kind of is a huge highlight in my story, because all this time I thought I was doing the right thing to be a positive role model to my brothers. I was really hurting them because I left them, which is deep. And when you talk about mental health, when you talk about emotional health, like, we don't always factor in how our social circles play a huge role into that. Because that really messed me up for a couple months. Like, dang, man, I never thought about how I impacted my brothers on that level. It just never crossed my mind, because I was trying to escape stuff myself. And I really care about my brothers, and I really try really hard to be there for them and to maintain as much of a positive and constructive relationship that I can with them. But I might have jeopardized how close we could have been by me just trying to better myself. Now, that's some deep-ass stuff. Now, imagine that. I'm 30 years old. And I had to make decisions like that. Like, man, I've hurt my brothers. At the time, when I left home, I was like 15, 16 years old. Like, that's crazy. Like, 15 years ago, I shifted the whole social dynamic and relationship between me and my brothers by me just trying to put myself in a better position due to the trauma and stress that I was living in. That's wild, man. And unfortunately, as black people, and especially as black men, we are forced to deal with this shit all the time. All the time. We don't have a sanctuary. We don't. And, a lot of times we just gotta buck up, man up, all these other terms, up, level up. We gotta just, suck shit up and just keep moving forward. And that's tough. So, I'm always a sounding board. People can hit me up. You can email me, Jones@WokePodcast. You can hit me up on Twitter @TheWokePodcast. Hell, if you want to come in and share your experiences, feel free. I'm always open to having guests. You don't have to be a big time person to get on my podcast, because really this is for us to get our collective minds right, so we have constructive information to push forward, and you do not have to suffer alone. But unfortunately, in this world, this very anti-black world that we live in, we're gonna suffer. Hopefully, we can all do what we need to do so we can lessen that suffrage and keep moving forward and empowering ourselves. We all we got. We all we got. I am Brandon Jones. I'm the host of the Woke Podcast. And remember, be safe, be constructive, be woke. Peace.